All right, so today we're really diving deep, and it's something I think a lot of people can relate to, even if just a little bit. It's all about that feeling of home. But specifically, we're looking at how people who are globally mobile, those who practically live out of a suitcase, how do they define home?
It's a great question, and one that really turns that traditional idea of home sweet home, tied to just one place on its head.
Yeah, definitely. So we're not talking about your childhood bedroom or your grandma's house.
Not necessarily, no. This is about something much more fluid.
Yeah.
Especially for those constantly on the move. What the research actually suggests is that they're creating a whole network of homes, each with its own purpose.
A network of homes, huh? So it's not just one place. Okay, I'm hooked. Break it down for us. What does this network actually look like?
So there are four main types that emerged. First up, you've got the emotional home. This one's probably the closest to that traditional idea we were talking about.
Okay, so even with multiple addresses, there's usually one that really tugs at the heartstrings.
Exactly. It's that place deeply connected to your sense of identity, your sense of belonging.
Gotcha. So we're talking about more than just bricks and mortar here.
Right. It's about those deep emotional connections, cherished possessions, close family, long-term commitments, those things that really root you. It's the foundation of that personal network.
That makes a lot of sense. But I'm curious, what about those who don't actually own a place in their emotional home location? Maybe they're in a super expensive city, or their work just doesn't allow for it. How does that fit into this network idea?
Well, that's where the home away from home comes in. This is about creating a space that's functional, comfortable, a place you spend a good chunk of time.
Okay, so you've got your routines there, maybe you put some pictures up, but it's not necessarily filled with a lifetime of memories.
Yeah, exactly. It might be where you live right now, but it doesn't necessarily hold that same depth of connection as your emotional home.
So less about replicating your childhood bedroom and more about creating a space that supports your current lifestyle. Comfortable, familiar, but not necessarily permanent.
Got it. What about the other types of home in this network?
Right, so then we get to the more practical side. We've got the base of operation, and this one's really all about efficiency.
Okay, so for our listeners who are all about organization and streamlining their lives, what's home for them? Think minimalist. A small apartment, maybe a shared living situation, even a corporate apartment. The key here is that it's optimized for work.
So not a lot of personal attachment in this type of home.
Not really, no. Yeah. It's about convenience, getting things done. You were in college once, right?
Way back when.
Think of it kind of like your dorm room or that tiny studio apartment near campus.
Oh, okay, yeah, totally get it. Not glamorous, but it gets the job done.
Exactly. It's about maximizing efficiency for that period of your life.
Yeah.
So that's your base of operations. Then lastly, we have home on the road.
Which is?
Well, it's the most transient. The most flexible.
Oh, right.
We're talking hotels, minimal possessions, that sort of thing.
Right. So how do you make a hotel room feel like home?
It's about routines, rituals. Even in a totally new place, you probably still unpack your toiletry bag the same way every time.
Oh, 100%. Or I'll find a coffee shop that reminds me of my favorite one back home.
There you go. It's about finding those little anchors, the little touches of normalcy that make you feel a bit more at ease, even when everything else is unfamiliar.
It's amazing how people create that sense of home, even in the most temporary of settings. But I imagine it's not always easy, right? What about those emotional and social challenges?
It's definitely not always easy. There's a lot to navigate emotionally when you're constantly on the move.
So let's talk about that. What are some of the challenges that the research highlighted?
Well, one of the biggest ones, and this came up a lot, is the whole juggling act of relationships across time zones.
Right, because you're never in the same place at the same time as anyone.
Exactly. And it's not just about missing big events like birthdays or holidays, though that's definitely a part of it.
Yeah, it's got to be tough to miss those milestones.
It is. But it's also about those smaller moments. Just everyday life stuff that you miss out on.
The stuff that makes up that tapestry of a relationship.
Exactly. And that can be really hard. It can lead to feelings of loneliness, guilt, even a fear of missing out.
It's like you're always on the periphery of everyone else's life, never quite fully present.
That's a really good way to put it. And the people in the study talked about that sense of displacement a lot.
So how do they deal with it? Are there any coping mechanisms?
A lot of it comes down to actively maintaining those connections, even when it's difficult.
Easier said than done when you're juggling multiple time zones.
Oh, for sure. But these are people who are up for the challenge. They prioritize staying in touch, even if they can't physically be there for every event. Late night calls, early morning video chats, you name it.
Wow, that takes dedication.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about the strength of those relationships, both for the people who are mobile and the people they leave behind, you know?
For sure, it's a team effort. But I imagine there's social challenges too, right? Like, is it difficult to build new relationships when you're constantly moving?
That's a great point, and it's a big one. Because, yeah, building a social life is hard enough as it is.
Right. But when you're only going to be in a place for a year or two, that adds a whole other level.
Absolutely. And the research really showed that. A lot of globally mobile folks talked about this struggle to feel truly integrated anywhere.
Like, you can never really plant your roots because you know you're going to have to pull them up again soon.
Exactly. And that can lead to a sense of always being in flux, never really feeling at home anywhere.
I bet. Did the research offer any solutions for that? Or like ways people have found to cope?
Well, remember those commercial friendships we talked about earlier?
Yeah, those kind of surface level but still meaningful interactions.
Right. Those can actually be super beneficial for people in this lifestyle.
Because even just a little bit of connection can go a long way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Having that barista who knows your order or that cashier at the grocery store who always chats with you, it gives you a sense of routine, of belonging.
Like, those small moments make a new place feel a little less foreign.
Yes, exactly. It's about finding those anchors in your day-to-day life, even if they're not going to turn into lifelong friendships.
Right, right. It's about making those temporary homes, whatever they look like, a little bit more welcoming. But okay, let's talk about the mental load of managing multiple homes. A life spread across different countries, like that in itself has to be exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking major cognitive challenges here. Think about it. You're dealing with different currencies, languages, even legal systems sometimes. It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, that's not something they teach you in school. How to manage your life across multiple continents.
Right. It's a crash course for sure.
So how do these global citizens keep it all straight?
It's a lot. And honestly, a lot of it comes down to getting organized, leveraging resources, not trying to do it all themselves.
So basically outsourcing some of that mental load.
Exactly.
Yes.
The research called them marketplace solutions. Think relocation services,
Makes sense.
international financial advisors, even like personal assistants who can handle those day-to-day logistics across different time zones.
Wow, so you're basically building this global support system.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. And it's not just about convenience, though. That's a huge part of it. It's about freeing up mental space for other things.
Yeah.
For building those relationships we were talking about.
Yeah.
For focusing on work. Or, just having the energy to actually enjoy those new experiences.
Because who wants to spend their whole trip worrying about what time it is back home so you can make a phone call?
Right. It's about working smarter, not harder, but like on a global scale.
Love it. But it makes you wonder, like, all these services must cost a fortune. Did the research talk about the financial side of all this?
It did. And it's interesting. A lot of the people they talked to, they were willing to make trade-offs in other areas of their lives to support this lifestyle.
Okay, so like what does that actually look like?
Well, they might choose smaller living spaces, or they might prioritize experiences over material possessions, be more mindful of their spending habits in general.
So it's really about aligning your spending with your values, which in this case is the freedom and flexibility that comes with a global lifestyle.
Exactly. And while most people listening probably aren't, jet setting off to a new country every week, there's a lot we can all take away from this research.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm already thinking about how I can apply some of this to my own life. So what can we learn from these global nomads, even if we're firmly planted in one place?
Well, it all comes back to that idea of home as a network, a collection of spaces and feelings that meet our different needs.
Okay, I like that. So it's not just about one place or one thing.
Right. So maybe it's about being intentional about setting up a dedicated workspace in your home, even if it's just a corner of the living room.
Kind of like creating your own little base of operation.
Exactly. Or maybe it's about putting more effort into cultivating those commercial friendships in your neighborhood, those familiar faces that brighten your day, even in a small way.
It's about finding those little pockets of belonging wherever you can.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we actually have a lot more control than we think we do when it comes to creating that sense of home, even if we're not physically moving around.
It's about curating your own little world, no matter where you are.
Yes. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. If home is more than just an address, how can you create those feelings of comfort, connection, and belonging in all areas of your life?